So to get started, I kind of wanted to let you guys know a little bit about me. I have been in the business for about 16 years. I have a actual studio space that I own that is in Beaverton, Oregon, or Portland if you're not familiar with the area. It's a great little studio space. I use a lot of natural light. I have a huge roll-up door that I'm able to use. For those of you that know, we live in Oregon, so there's a little bit of issue with weather. So it's nice having that studio space as backup, even though I do prefer to do outdoors as much as I can. I obviously specialize in kids, which is why I'm doing the webinar on kids. This here is a shot that my husband took on Mother's Day of me with my two kids. That's my daughter Lily, who's 3, and my son Lennox, who's just now 3 months. Pretty much represents who we are in this picture. My daughter's face kind of says it all. But I wanted you guys to know that I was a wife. I am the wife of Dan Harlicker, who is the senior product manager here at On One. So this is a pretty good gig for me. I get to get great software to use for my images, and my husband helped design it, so it works great. One of the things with me being specializing in kid photography is I have been in the business long enough that I've kind of done a little bit of everything. And if you're new to the industry, I mean, a lot of people try to pretty much do anything that they can. You know, they're shooting commercial, they're shooting kids, they're shooting weddings, they're shooting seniors, they're shooting families. And I know a lot of that stuff kind of goes together. But then again, I think that even though we can do it all, doesn't necessarily mean that we should. And I have had the weddings, and I do shoot some seniors, but really I have narrowed my focus just to kids and babies, and families come along with that a little bit. But that definitely is what I'm good at. And for some reason, I have this rapport with kids that I'm able to get the images that I really enjoy. I always tease that just because you can shoot everything doesn't mean that you should. Definitely go after your passion and shoot the thing that really means something to you and that you're good at. And if you are new and aren't sure what that is, you are going to take the time to go through different things and find where your passion actually lies. I have a little slideshow, just if you haven't been to my website or seen that I wanted you guys to see. Well, actually, I'll just flip through the images, but this is some samples of my work. As we go through, I'm sure you'll see how simple stuff is. I mean, it's not a lot to it. It's not a lot of extra props or, silly things. I'm definitely about the moment, the interaction. This shot you guys are seeing now is a great family shot that just totally represented this entire shoot. This couple had twins, so quite chaotic. I love black and white. I do shoot a lot of black and white, and I actually shoot black and white in the camera, and we can talk more about that later. I know there's a lot of people that would say that's a big no-no, but I definitely like the instant gratification that I get from shooting in black and white. Got a couple family shots in here. I'll go through these pretty quickly. I don't want to bore you guys with too much on me, but I wanted you to be able to at least see kind of my style, and that you can probably see as we're going through here. Like I said, very simple black and whites. I definitely try to go off the motion. It's not all about the smiling shot for me. It's definitely more about the moment and the personality of the kid. And kind of too, when we go through the end, all of these images are finished or I've done something to them, but I try not to over retouch or add filters and effects to them too much. I think with kids, you just want to leave it be as is. Let the kids, show their personality. Make the images pop a little bit, but not overdo it too much. I know when I've shot high school seniors, you can get away with a lot more funky and a lot more, textures and grid, or, however you want to do that. But with kids, you want a little bit more, or at least I do, timeless look to them. I'm going to go through these a little quicker. I think I'm getting to the end here. I love little details. You'll see the hands and the little feet here. Am I going too fast? So I'm about to the end here, and that actually last one, that's my daughter, which if you guys out there are moms with a camera, I'm kind of a mom with a camera. At least I'm a mom now. I've been in it long enough. I did shoot before then, but I'll tell you what, shooting your kids is not fun, and I'm sure you guys can understand that as well. They don't usually cooperate. This is actually my daughter that we just did. This was her showing me how her smiles, basically, so how well she cooperates. And it ended up being one of my favorite shots. This is her. This has a moment. This is what it was about. This was the shoot. We'll talk a little bit more about this in a little bit. The reason I threw all these flag ones in there, obviously 4th of July is coming, but this was a shoot that I just did. It's a little mini session that I did, and it was so simple. All I did was take American flag, I put it up on the wall, and I have a couple of kids wrapped in it and, kind of played with it as a prop and did a quick little 15-minute shoot of a bunch of kids, and it was awesome. That was the last one, so let's go back. So kind of going through that, I said you should be able to see a little bit of a style in there. And I would tell people to define your brand and to stick to your style. So one of the things that I've noticed over the years, and you'll see in this slide here, is that I seem to do a horizontal face shot at pretty much every shoot, and probably more than one, but hadn't really realized that those images really spoke to me or really meant something to me. And I would see myself doing it over and over and over again. And here's a bunch here, and you can see all of these kids' personalities in these shots. They're black and white or color. I have several, or I shouldn't even say several, I have a ton of my clients that actually buy these in a 20 by 30 gallery wrap size. And that is what I showcase in my studio and see, and that's the stuff that I push. And for me, these are so simple and so timeless that they will still look good on the wall for years to come. There's not a lot of props to them. There's not a lot of, crazy backgrounds or anything. It's just about the personality of the kids. There's a couple or two smileys on here, but you can see their silly faces. You've got the little pouty girl down on the left. Definitely who they were and definitely about the moment. I am a very big fan of sticking to your style no matter what the client wants. And I say this lightly. I think there's a right photographer for everybody. I do think that each photographer kind of represents their own style, and you don't want to break that just to make a client happy. I mean, I've told people no when they've asked for, I'm probably going to shoot myself in the foot for saying this, but, can you make a black and white shot with the eyes in color? Well, my answer is no. Yes, I can do it, but it's not who I am, and it's not my style, and I'm not a fan of it. It doesn't make it wrong. It doesn't, if that's who you are and that's what you do, that's great. But for me, that is very much not my style and not something that I want to represent Bliss. So I will tell people, no, if that's something that you're looking for, I will ask them to hire somebody else. And I think as a business person, turning business away is definitely a hard thing to do. And I have learned over the years to do it. And it is a good thing when it's necessary. If it's not the right client for you, or they're asking for something that is, not your forte or what you're used to doing, do not be afraid to tell them no or to have them hire somebody else. One thing we don't offer is digital files. And I'm been in the business long enough that I'm back to the negative days where we didn't give away negatives. And I know that it's very easy now just to pass out digital files. And that is a lot of how the working studios work these days. That's just not something that I'm willing to do. I want to sell finished art. I want these prints that you're looking at in a canvas gallery wrap hanging on my clients' walls. I want to make sure that the color's beautiful. We do a lot of the printing in-house. We do the wrapping of the canvases in-house. So I want to make sure that my finished work is actually hanging on my client's wall. And so therefore I don't give a disc. And the color, I want to make sure the color is beautiful and all of that. So nobody has any questions yet. If anybody has any questions, be sure to pop them in. I will kind of, as we're going through the slides, I'm happy to answer them. One of the things that I would say is don't be afraid to keep it simple. I think a lot of times we go, well, Pinterest, if anybody's a Pinterest user, you're going on Pinterest, you're looking for ideas, you're looking at other photographers, trying to get ideas for your own shoots. Sometimes they can get overdone. You can be, trying to throw every prop you can in the image, or you can, be trying to do too much to something. It's okay if it's simple. These 3 shots here are awesome. I have a 30 by 30 gallery wrap of the pigtail shot on the left hanging in my studio. People come in and love that image. It's, impactful. It's a great shot. It's very timeless, beautiful, would go in a nursery. I mean, I try to make those prints that are going to be art, and it's not going to be like, well, I did this, shoot, and now what were my parents thinking when you're older? This gives you something that will still look good in 10 years. So I showed the little flag shots. So even though I'm saying keep it simple, that's fine. I do a few mini sessions throughout the year that give my clients a chance to come back more than once. So one thing for us is we're not a cheap studio. We're rather expensive. So when people are going to invest their time and money in us, they'll usually do it once a year or once every couple of years. So the in-between spots, I try to do little mini sessions that will help get them to come back in. And I try to keep them, quick 15, 20-minute sessions, and they're usually themed. Now, it's kind of scary when I say theme because that can get a little overdone, but this right here was our 4th of July. All I had was a flag. That was it. The flag was the whole inspiration for the entire shoot. I did little 15-minute sessions. They were fabulous. The kids were awesome. They loved it. I mean, they played with the flag. I had it on the wall. It was a great little session, great way to make money without overdoing it. I'm checking my notes here just really quick. Let's keep going. My approach to shooting kids is, I mean, some of this is going to seem pretty obvious, but to let kids be, to let them be who they are, let them show you their personality, and not, try to force it. I think one thing that's beneficial for me is I try to shoot all of my kids outdoors when I can. Being in Oregon, we do have rain. We've shot in between rain. It's quite comical, actually. We roll up the roll-up door that I have in my studio, which faces north light, which is beautiful. So even if it's just a little chilly or a little rain, I can still roll that up. I will use studio lights if I have to. That is definitely my last resort, and also puts a little bit of boundaries on a kid, which makes it a little harder. When you're shooting in a studio with studio lighting, you need the kid to stay in one spot and not go anywhere. When you're shooting a 2-year-old, those of you that have 2-year-olds or have shot 2-year-olds, it's not good. Keeping them in one spot is very highly unlikely. So when you are able to shoot outdoors or have a bigger area that you can shoot with, they, tend to come out of their shell, and, you can chase them around outside, so you can get that personality. Making them sit still in one little spot in a studio is terrible. So don't force it. Let the kid be who they are. Get down on their level, get down on the ground with them, talk to them. I think sometimes I'm a little guilty of paying attention to the child or the baby or whoever's coming through the door before I say hello to the mother. I'll be already bending down saying, oh, hello, how are you? To the little 2-year-old or 3-year-old that comes in, and then, oh yeah, by the way, hi mom. Just trying to get that child to be comfortable with me and to be excited about their shoot. If you're shooting a kid and they don't do it, this seems like a no-brainer, but move on. Do not keep trying to fight it. Do not force them. You're going to have a meltdown. I am very good at going with the flow when you shoot with kids. I already know I can't make them do anything they don't want to, no matter how, important it is to the mom or the dad or whoever's there with the kid. I let them know we're going to get what we get. We're going to let the kid, do their thing, and we're going to get the shots that we get. Those represent my style. It's not going to be forced. They're not going to be sitting still in this one little spot. I know they're not going to, and I'm prepared for that up front. One compliment that I got from a client recently was how quick and efficient I was at shooting. And I hadn't really thought about it before, but I know that it's mostly because that your window of opportunity is very small. So I am trying as quickly as I can to get them those shots that I need. And then after that, whatever comes of it, comes of it. And I think that that's pretty important. That between, the time the kid shows up, you probably have a 20-minute window of happy time. Most of my shoots take anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour. Am I in trouble? Are we okay?
Yeah.
30 minutes to an hour, but I can tell you the sweet spot's that first 20 minutes. And depending on the child, if you have the perfect little model, you might make it past that, but it kind of depends. I would say know your goal. So know what your end result is going to be, whether or not you're making an album, whether you're making a wall portrait for your client, whether they want a collage, kind of know what your goal is ahead of time. That will also help if you're needing detail shots or getting those, different shots. You'll know kind of what your parents are expecting as well as what your end result goal is. And then super, super important, and again, seems like a no-brainer, is just to know your gear. I'm very, very quick at my gear. I can switch my settings really, really fast. I'm not, stressed about it, which when you're on the fly with a 2-year-old, you have to go with the flow. If the lighting is changing, if you're shooting outside and you've got clouds coming in or you have sun, you need to be super quick and know how to change your settings. The longer you're fumbling with stuff, you're going to miss the moment. And one that I probably didn't put on here is I tend to overshoot, and I don't know if that's necessarily a bad thing. When you're shooting, kids, I edit down, so it's not a big deal, but I will be a little happy on the shutter just to make sure that I do get those shots that I need, especially at the beginning.
Whitney, we did have a question about gear. Outdoor shooting, natural light, what is your go-to lens? and what focal length and what aperture are you typically shooting?
So my favorite lens that I use probably 90% of the time is an 85 millimeter 1.8. Which is a little scary. So when you're shooting at 1.8, especially when you have either a family or multiple kids, you are going to have blurry shots, especially when you have multiple kids. You really got to keep them on the same level. But I love the way that the lens looks. I love the focal length of the lens. That's kind of personal preference though at this point. I mean, everybody has a favorite lens, I'm sure. You have something that you tend to pull out. I have several other lenses and I do use them, but I can do pretty much an entire shoot with the 85 1.8 and be perfectly happy. So it has a nice blur to it. I don't know. And did you say something about shooting just outside?
Yep.
I use that inside and outside actually, so it doesn't matter. And if I can use natural light inside, I'll still put it at that 1.8 if I can get away with it. I think that's good.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, that's my last little slide here. So I'm going kind of fast, I think. Does anybody else have any questions? I think we're doing pretty good. I talk fast, so I apologize for that, but we're going through this pretty quick. So I have a couple samples that I wanted to go through. So kind of in the same way that I shoot, I take that same philosophy a little bit into my post-production. I am not a landscape photographer. I understand that people that are landscape photographers will spend hours or not. I mean, my husband shoots a lot of landscape, making the image and tweaking it and making it just perfect for them in post-production. If you're running a portrait studio, that is not possible. So if you're trying to make money at this and run a studio, you do not have time to spend an hour on one image or you just lost all of your profits from that session. I try to get as much stuff in camera right as possible so that I have the least amount of post-production afterwards. With kids, I am a little luckier. When you're shooting high school seniors, you have to worry about acne or, that kind of thing. When you have kids, honestly, the only thing is sometimes I've got bumps and bruises. So, somebody will say somebody slipped and has a little bruise, or in fact, I've actually had kids get bumps and bruises during their session, which is awesome. But I will retouch that out. I won't retouch it on every proof, but I will on anything that they do in their final. But we don't have to worry about acne. A little bit sometimes on babies, I'll do a little skin smoothing, but I really try to keep it as real as possible. And the kids make that really easy for me. I also try to keep it simple on the retouching. So retouching and adding of effects. I have a few favorites and I will show you guys my favorites that I really like. I've kind of got the effects or filters, I guess we'll call them, that really define who I am. I save them as presets, so it's really quick when I'm doing post. You'll see a lot, even in my samples, that they're similar. So you have this black and white, the texture and the vignetting that's on this, I'll use on quite a few images. Here it is on another one. I have that same look on some of my color stuff too. So I try to keep the same look and feel, which makes it really easy when I'm doing post. Here you'll see that a little bit of vignette in here, and then there's a little bit of a vintage filter on this as well. So I am going to go through a couple little samples. We're going to start with Demi. So I am a Photoshop user, which may or may not be what you do. I'm a little old school. I do a lot of design work. I do a lot of album design and custom collages and such. So I'll do most of my work in Photoshop. Obviously with online, you do not have to do that. You can do it directly out of Lightroom. You could do it directly from the suite. But for me, I still stick with what I know, which is using stuff in Photoshop. So I'm going to go ahead and edit the image in Photoshop. This image was shot in black and white, which I'm sure many people will tell you is a big no-no. I like the instant gratification. I am still from the film days. We shot black and white film. So when I'm doing a shoot, I shoot both in color and black and white. Back to knowing your gear, I am very quick at switching from color to black and white, and I will shoot both, and I tell my client that. So my client knows when they come to me, they are going to get a mix of black and white and color images, and that the black and whites were shot that way. And so even if I change something in post to black and white, I tell my client it's in black and white. I'm the artist, and I definitely want to showcase the stuff that I love and that means something to me, and I want them to see how I would want it represented. So if it's in black and white, it is. I will change color to black and white if necessary. And I do all my sales sessions with my clients. So if something's not going to work, I'm going to flat out tell them that's not going to look good in, black and white. And we'll look at it. Oh yeah, you're right. That looks better in color. So I won't let somebody leave with something that I think is going to look bad. I definitely still want my art represented properly. So even though this was shot in black and white, I would still do a little bit of finish on this one, just to make it a little bit more bliss, I should say. I tend to like a little bit more warm tone black and whites. So I'm going to go ahead and go into Perfect Effects. And I'll kind of show you the few favorites that I use. And then we'll go ahead and save it as a preset, just in case you don't know how to do that. And then I have my little presets in a category under, vintage or babies, and I just go through them and use them over and over and over again just to make my post a little bit faster. Okay. So I have Perfect Effects open. I'm going to go straight to the filters category up at the top, and we're going to go into our black and white. And I'm going to scroll down to selenium, I believe. So there's the subtle selenium. So I'm going to put that one on there first. And then we'll go ahead and add that one. And then I still like a little bit of warmth. I don't necessarily like sepia, but that's what we're going to call it. So I'm going to grab the sepia toner, which is a little bit brown for my taste. So I'm going to pull that back just a little bit. So I'm going to do about a 65. So it just gives it just a tint of warmth. And then let's add that one. And then one of the other very, very popular that you'll see on a lot of my images is the grunge vignette. And this adds a little bit of texture and a little bit of vignetting. And I apparently can't spell today. Is it light grunge vignette? Oh, actually, I'm looking in the wrong category. I apologize. It's actually under the texturizer. You can also type stuff up in the search, but I don't want it to pull up my other presets, so I'm actually trying to look for the real filter for you. So there's a grunge vignette dark and there's a grunge vignette light. So I'm going to go ahead and grab the light one. And then I know this is going to go over her face a little bit. So it's kind of hard to say, but it's a little bit heavy on her cheek right here. And because this tints it a little bit, if I start trying to mask that out, it's not going to look very good. So instead, I'm just going to rotate that. And I think I should, so let's go one more so that it moves that texture. So now we have a little bit of a texture on there. And then I'm going to go back to that vignette category, and I know that's a vignette, but I'm going to darken those edges just a little bit. And the vignette that I normally use is just a subtle vignette. And it's not quite dark enough, so I'm going to go ahead and add that one more time. So I'm going to stack the subtle vignette twice. And then the last step on this is, and I pretty much do this on any image that I'm going to do any effect on, is just add a quick portrait sharpen. I really like the eyes to pop just a little bit, but I don't want to over sharpen it. So there's a little bit of, didn't it do it? A little bit of portrait sharp on there. So that's more my finished image. So here is our before, which I would look at and say not bad, but when I do my little filters and effects on it, that looks a little bit more my style and a little bit more bliss. And then I would go up here and go ahead and save that preset. So if you've never done this before, save a preset name. I would just say warm tone black and white and put it in a category, babies. And then if you want to list your steps in your description, you can, but we'll just hit create on that. I'm going to cancel out of this. I feel like I'm going too fast. Okay. And then I will actually show you guys. So here, one more time. So these are this is the before and after of that shot. So once the preset's created super fast, I will do that to most of my black and whites. The grunge effect does make a little bit of a problem, so you may have to go in and make some adjustments on that. But I still like to finish my black and whites just a touch. Okay. So I'm gonna do one more, and then I don't know how much time we have.
Then we'll open up for questions.
Okay. So let's do one more real quick. This is we'll do a color image. So here is my, oops, and I just closed it, of course. One more time, hold on a second. And I am taking an extra step by pulling into Photoshop, so this is just my workflow and what I've been doing. Okay, so is it not opening? There we go. One of the category I like for a lot of my color images is going to be the vintage category, and I use quite a few in there. I like the blue tones a little bit. I like the warmer tones depending on what I'm doing. This was a studio shot, and this was actually used with studio lighting. The black and white you saw was actually natural light. That was with a big roll-up door. It's a cute shot. It's a little warm. I kind of wanted to make this a little bit cooler, so I am going to go into the vintage category, and ones that you'll see in my images is the blue yellow. I use a lot of that. I use a lot of the red yellow, which is down here on the bottom. It's a little heavy on this image, as you'll see, and I will pull it back if necessary. But the blue yellow will give us a little bit more blue tint, which I think is great. A little heavy, so I'm going to pull that back just a touch. We'll give it about an 80. And then the same as we did with the black and white, I still probably finish it with the same type of texture. So I like the grunge vignette texture. I like the portrait sharpen that I would do at the end. I like a little subtle vignette. So I would kind of do the same little process that we did with the black and white, but do it with a color. So let's quickly add those. So back to the texture. And there's other ones that are really good in here. I just really like that grunge vignette because it's not too much. And it also lightens up your center a little bit, which I like. It brightens up the subject. And then I'm going to pull that back just a little bit too. I think it's a little heavy on this image. So we're just going to put it in just a slight, just to give it a little bit of texture. And then I would go ahead and go darken those edges just a little bit more. So let's go back to the vignette and do a subtle vignette. And then my final step would be the portrait sharpen. And I am going to type that in. And it would help if I could spell. Maybe not. Here we go. It looked right. So we'll add a little portrait sharpen to finish. And the portrait sharp does great for me. I mean, I'm doing this work on the main image. So even when I crop the images down to an 8x10 or a 5x7 that I'm going to give to the client, there's still a nice little sharpness to their eyes and their faces that I really like. There's a couple others in here that you could use. There's an amazing detail, which sometimes can be fun if you have a bunch of stuff going on, but it can be a little bit heavy for the kids. Actually, I do have one more. So while that's doing that, I'll go. So here is your before and after on her. So just a little finish, just a little color pop. I love the blue tint to it. Okay. And then I can do one more really, really quick. Does everybody have the old presets, or do they actually have to download those?
It depends on if they've been a suite owner, because that's included in loyalty rewards programs. So if they just have perfect effects, then they probably wouldn't. But if they have the suite, they have them, or they would have access to them.
Okay. So there's a bunch of old presets that were made that I still really like, which is why I wasn't typing anything in. I didn't want to confuse the two of them. But there's like in the vintage category, I think there's a Tijuana Sunrise that I really like. If you do have access to these, you guys heard what Peter said, you can sneak in here and grab these. But these are really quick retouching that just really require, or I shouldn't even say retouching, but adding a filter that requires a click of a button rather than stacking as many as I tried to do. Like this Tijuana Sunrise I actually love, and it's very warm. One of the events that I do is a vintage fields, which is what this image is from. So I can just add that in just to golden that up a little bit. We'll pull it back just a little bit, and I'm done. I wouldn't necessarily do anything else, maybe a portrait sharp if you wanted to on this. I will give you this little trick. If you use any of these and you want to stack something on top of it, you do need to hold the Option key, I believe, to add another layer on top. If you're a, what's Windows? That's on Mac.
It's Option.
Option as well. Okay. So just in case, you can't stack the presets that are already created. So if you are going to try to stack something, you do need to add that. And if you guys have any trouble, I'm sure somebody will help. Mm-hmm. Okay. I went really fast.
That's all right. We can open it up the second half. If anyone has questions, we can answer those for you. Other than that, this will conclude the presentation portion for the webinar. I do want to thank Whitney for joining us today. Whitney has a great studio here in Portland, and she is a regular around the office, and she will be doing more webinars here in the future.